I tell you what, since we have a quorum now, let me call the meeting to order, okay? So it's 7:01. The meeting of December 15th, 2020 is called to order. And greetings, Olivia. Welcome. And I think you're the person we're supposed to be listening from at 7 o'clock, right?
I
Okay.
believe I am, yes.
Hi,
And I
Olivia.
know
How are you?
Hello, I'm good. How is everyone?
Good, thank you.
Good,
healthy.
good.
So, yeah, we're still missing one of our board members. But I know your time is very tight. So I tell you what, why don't we begin your presentation, okay? And I'm sure Cheryl can catch up when she joins us.
Yeah. She's just sent me a text back. She's having computer issues, so she'll be joining us in a few minutes.
Okay, well, why don't you begin, Olivia?
All right, absolutely. Yeah. I'm just here to talk quickly. It shouldn't be too long about sort of what's been going on with our tobacco control district. So, hi everyone. My name is Olivia Dufour. I am the new tobacco control manager for the Metro West Tobacco District. I was hired a few months ago, and I've been working on catching up and getting up to speed with everything that's going on in the district and has been happening in the past. So I'm just going to talk about my role, what you can expect from me, what my job is as it relates to Norfolk. And then if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. So we'll dive right in. So looking at the data that I gathered about Norfolk, you have a pretty small population, so I can definitely relate to that. I grew up in a very small town, very similar demographics. Only 7 tobacco licenses from the most recent data that I have. So also a pretty small retailer, a pretty low retailer density, even compared to the rest of the district, with just 0.58 retailers per 1,000 residents. So that's a good thing. It means less access to tobacco for youth in the area.
Olivia, do you want to be showing your slides at this point? Betsy,
if you'd like me to put them up, I can. If you just want me to talk, whatever you think would be easier.
Well, I mean, but you're.
I can screen share the PowerPoint presentation you sent me at that, if you'd like that.
I mean, it sounds
Sure.
like you're going through the presentation now, and
if that works for you all. It's been different with how people are wanting me to do these different meetings. So yeah, I'm happy to do that. And I can just prompt you for a next slide.
Yep, you can all see that, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Next slide, please.
Amazing. All right. So some background on the district at large, as opposed to just on Norfolk, is that it was founded in 2013 using Metro West Health Foundation dollars, and it was based out of Natick. So I don't believe that Norfolk was previously a part of that district. And you guys jumped on with this new emergency funding that we got from DPH in 2020. Now the district is run out of Framingham, so that's where I'm based out of. And we have this funding for the 2020 to 2021 fiscal year. Next slide. So as I said, it's this 1-year emergency funding, and it's specifically working to enforce the new state law, especially in places where there wasn't a strong tobacco control effort. So just as a refresher, those new state laws are the no sale to minors under 21, where previously it was 18, no flavored products, which now includes mint and menthol, which was a pretty big shift. A lot of places had previously banned flavor on their own, but taking away mint and menthol was a much stronger effort to prevent people from becoming addicted to nicotine in the first place. And no sale of vape products containing over 35 milligrams of nicotine. There are some exceptions, so flavor can still be sold for on-site consumption at smoking bars, and vape products with over 35 milligrams of nicotine can still be sold in adult-only retailers. So that's like smoke shops, for example. There is going to be opportunities for new funding to continue this tobacco control effort. those updates will be incoming. But just so that you know, we are looking on the horizon for how we're going to continue this effort, especially as it relates to thinking about preventing teen vaping. So next slide. So we have some immediate priorities, which are these retail education inspections. So our retail education inspection is where we're going to go into the retailer, deliver them the mandatory signage based on what the state has made mandatory. There's some new signs, so we're anticipating that there will be a little bit of catching up to do in many of the municipalities in the district. So we'll be delivering that signage, making sure that menthol has been removed from the shelf, and then really working with the retailers to make sure that they understand the new law and to make sure that they know how to be in compliance with it. And part of the reason why that's so important is because with this new law comes a new fining structure. So while we traditionally may know about the $100, $200, $300 fines, or some communities have a $300 fine across the board, it really depends. And we're talking about that comes with each consequent violation within a certain tolling period. The new state laws have their own fining structure, and that is $1,000 on the first offense within 36 months, $2,000 on the second offense, and $5,000 on the third offense, as well as permit suspensions going along with the second and third offenses. So those are much, much, much higher fines than we've previously been giving out in the past when it comes to tobacco violations. And because of that, we want to make sure that retailers are really prepared and really, really understand the consequences of not being in compliance with these state laws. And for that reason, because some of these municipalities in our district haven't had a formal tobacco inspection in, it could be anywhere from 1 year to much, much longer than that, we want to make sure that everybody has had a fair chance to be educated and to be brought into compliance before we start dishing out these fines. If there are people that, have really egregious violations or have been frequent violators in the past, we're going to be able to work sort of on a case-by-case basis as well. But we just want to make sure that on this first visit in, we're more about building relationships and helping people to come into compliance rather than trying to bring down the hammer. The thing that I know many people are really concerned about is the compliance checks. So that's where we send a youth between the ages of 16 and 20 into a store, and they attempt to purchase the tobacco product of usually the community's choice, whatever people feel is the most sort of a problem for teens to be buying. So that could be vape products, cigars, cigarettes. Those compliance checks are not currently mandated under this DPH funding, and that's because of the COVID risk. So there's a lot of liability with sending a minor into a store in some of these municipalities where, the COVID rate is really high. So what our plan is that after we've done this initial round of retail education inspections, we've touched in with everybody, they're understanding that these are going to be happening. We could be coming into their store without notice. That's when we'll sort of make a plan based on state guidance and what other programs are doing as to how to safely complete these compliance checks and be mindful of COVID-19. Next slide. And so the last thing is sort of what you can expect from me. So I'll be doing consistent and timely reporting after any retailer violation, as well as follow-up. So that could be anything from the follow-up inspection to attending a Board of Health hearing, if it's needed for someone to come in and present sort of what happened to the board. I will be sharing inspection reports and records after any inspection that we do. We'll be doing a written quarterly report for the district that I will send out to all of the health directors and agents, and that can be disseminated to boards if people are interested in seeing what's been going on. And then I'll also be responsible for the collection and tracking of the community-specific data as it pertains to tobacco and nicotine use. So those are sort of my responsibilities and what you can be expecting from me as we go forward with this district. And I think that is my whole spiel. If anybody has any questions for me.
Well, Can I just break the ice with one? And then I was going to actually ask Mark if he would like to come in on this conversation. Another document you sent us, I think, was maybe a one-page flyer that had kind of a check mark of indications of what things we're doing as a town now and what things other towns are doing that
Yeah, seems like Betsy's gonna pull
we're
it up
not
for
doing.
us.
And one of the things we're not doing is we're not outlawing smoking bars or tobacco bars or whatever.
Mhm.
And is it at the bottom of this one?
Yeah, I
scroll
think
down, Betsy?
it's if you scroll down, it's at the bottom. It's just a quick regulation check, just to, as a visual for myself and for the boards as well.
There we go. Ban smoking bars. We don't have any in town. So
Yes. Yeah.
it'd be an easy thing to sort of simply say, yeah, well, let's not have any in town. Because it's not going to basically be a problem for anybody who has such a, premise going.
Right.
Is that a fairly widely done thing, or is that a fairly rare thing to have done in a small town?
I wouldn't necessarily know about the demographics based on like a small town versus a larger town or a city. I know that they're encouraging more places around Massachusetts to start to do it, because I think sort of the sentiment is that as they start to get banned, maybe places might try and pop up in these like lesser, I mean, the places where they're not banned. I don't know that that's like happened or been a concern. There's not too many smoking bars in Massachusetts. Mostly they're centered in Worcester, Boston, Springfield, I believe. So it's something that's an option. I know that policy is not really on the forefront of people's mind right now, but I just wanted to kind of just bring it up. But I would say it's probably not a pressing issue as far as Norfolk goes.
Tom, if I
My
may.
guess is it would not be a big deal for too many of us to pass such a thing. I mean, a couple of years ago, the town voted not to allow recreational pot use in town. No sales of that. So this kind of, in some respects, goes along with that thinking a little bit. And in fact, in terms of the public health issues, I'd say this one's a whole lot more important. So anyway, Mark, did you have a...
Yeah, Tom, if I may, through you. Hi, Olivia. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Mark?
Good. Olivia, related to smoking bars, the opportunity is to go in, consume, but you cannot take off premise. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so a smoking bar doesn't open up the opportunity to sell vapes or flavored products outside of them going into possibly vape or in vape flavored products, for example. But Tom, back to what you said, I agree. I think where you may find that the interest may be a little bit heightened is where you're near a college, unfortunately. And colleges, the age demographics can maybe attract. So where's the closest smoking bar to us, Olivia? Do you know to Norfolk? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. My guess would be in Boston. I don't think that we have any in the district that I know of.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
And I'm happy to send over some sample regulation language to Betsy if that's something that the board would be interested in pursuing.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of other stuff on our plate right now, but send it along anyway. Maybe we can have a discussion at some point.
Absolutely.
And Tom, if I can add, you may find down the road that someone will come in and try to apply for adult only. What I would suggest, I don't know if Norfolk has capped off the permits that you offer, so that if anyone decides to not sell tobacco any longer, that permit goes to rest, basically cannot be renewed by any other people. The reason I bring that up is if there was a facility out there, if you have a cap, they would have to look for a permit that exists. But I think it also With 7 licenses, I think that's sufficient. Again, it's the board's decision, but I would suggest that you may consider capping. And then as time goes on, when people give up their license, it just gets dissolved basically to that new cap. So if you have 7 and someone decides they're selling their store, no one wanted to buy it, that license would then be taken away and there would only be 6 licenses available, if that's an example.
Thanks, Mark. Other questions for Olivia or comments?
I thought that was a great presentation. I quickly looked up on my phone, smoking bars near me, and she's correct. There really isn't anything around here. There's one in Sudbury, there's one in Watertown, there's one in Providence. So that's as close as they are, at least on Yelp.
Thanks for the research, Eileen.
It was quick.
Any other, anything else for a visitor?
No, that's it. I did the same thing Eileen did. The closest is Sudbury.
And I think there's some, because they are in our district, but I think they are even like there's something brewing there that I'm working on figuring out with their Board of Health director as well.
Olivia, if I may again, Tom, when the time arises that with the restrictions from COVID are released and you can start doing your comprehensive inspections, how many a year do you expect to do? And are you utilizing youth from the area, or are you going to utilize youth from other towns to go in and try to purchase?
So generally speaking, when we are in let's say a normal year, when we're doing compliance checks, we'd likely be doing between 2 and 3. And then if there's a violation within 30 days, we have to go back and do another compliance check with a different youth to ensure that they've changed their practices and that they're not allowing it to happen again. Generally speaking, we'll try and recruit youth from the area, but I think the most common practice is that we would bring a youth into Norfolk that doesn't live in Norfolk. So that way there's no risk of them going into a store and trying to buy cigarettes and then they see their friend's mom and they're like, I can't buy cigarettes in front of my friend's mom. So we try and recruit from the area because it's easier for us, but we also try and be mindful of the fact that a lot of these kids aren't going to want to be going into their local corner store and trying to buy cigarettes.
And just one other question. Do we have any history on when the last comprehensive inspection occurred, if any did occur in Norfolk?
For Norfolk, I don't.
And I know it's been years into the old tobacco control.
Thanks, Betsy. I thought it was a while. I don't remember hearing about it in years. So this will be a good opportunity once the COVID situation allows for them to start getting back into the stores. I think it's a great opportunity, and hopefully everyone will be paying attention to not selling to minors.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, Olivia, thank you for visiting.
Absolutely.
And welcome aboard.
Thanks.
And yeah, when we finally get our head above water, we will be in touch. I think the idea of the sun setting of permits is something we really need to consider.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have lots of examples and sample regulation from people at DPH that I'm more than happy to send over either. Well, I'll send it to you, Betsy, and then, once things are a little more calm and settled, we can revisit the conversation.
Great.
Okay.
As far as me being able to go out and do inspections in Norfolk, I'm not sure, does it have to come to a vote, or is it depends, like there's different sort of methodology for every board.
Let's see, do we need to make Olivia an agent of the board?
You can
She's going to
certainly,
be doing inspections.
you can certainly do that.
I would suggest it only so that she's acting on behalf of the board when she's out there.
Yeah,
I would suggest that.
that would be a good idea. And then Olivia, they'll appoint you as an agent to the, Board of Health for tobacco compliance checks. And then the town clerk will just swear you in, and she's been doing that over the phone.
Oh,
So-
absolutely.
And then I can coordinate that for you.
Amazing.
And Olivia, if
appreciate
there's
it.
any question on who you are, or if you're having any issues out there, just let Betsy know and she'll call me and I can probably try to intervene to make sure the retailers understand you are part of the Board of Health.
Right, and I can also, when I know you're going out, let the police department, let them be aware that you're gonna be in town doing compliance checks, just in case there's any issues.
Absolutely.
Idea.
Sounds good to me. All right.
All right. Well, since we're on the topic, is there a motion to appoint Olivia Dufour as an agent of the Board of Health for the purposes of tobacco control? I guess that-
I'll make a motion to appoint Olivia Dufour as an agent to the Board of Health for tobacco compliance.
I second that motion.
Unless there's any further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Well, there you have it. As far as we're concerned, we just got to get you sworn in and you'll be an agent of the Board of Health.
Awesome. I appreciate that. All righty.
Thank you.
Well, thank
I've
you
got to
very
hop
much.
off, but thank
All
you
right.
everyone for having me, and I hope you have a great, yes, a very happy holiday and a very healthy holiday.
And you as well. It's been a pleasure working.
Thank you, Olivia. You too.
Take care, Olivia.
Okay. Can we get back to our agenda, Betsy?
Yep. We've got, next up is Rich McCarthy. He's gonna talk about a few things, but first on the discussion is, he's gonna discuss regional public health services.
All right, thank you. Richard McCarthy, Norfolk Town Planner. I know that I'm sure there's been interest over time in trying to enhance and provide additional public health services to the town. And I know that we have Mark who's on the line that provided those type of services on a contractual basis, and then we obviously had his role relative to his aspect of it. And so what kind of come out of what kind of developed over time and probably moved a little bit more quickly perhaps, but when Fran Sullivan was on the board, she had kind of, if you recall, was interested in trying to provide additional public health services to residents of the town of Norfolk. And so she had reached out to Blythe a while ago, and Blythe would have been on the meeting tonight, but she has a select board meeting simultaneously. But otherwise she would be here to kind of talk about this as well. To look at ways to perhaps provide additional services, enhanced services for the town of Norfolk. So what we've done is through the a group of towns, and I think I've already sent you the scope of the proposal, but for the folks at home, is between the towns of Dover, Medfield, Medway, Norfolk, Plainville, Sherburne, Rentham, is submit a district local technical assistance grant application to the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. So they've kind of expanded different aspects of planning, and they've developed more of a public health aspect to work they've done. And so this grant would be to look at the possibility of, well, first would be the assessment. So service delivery in the different areas for each community that would be participating in the grant application. And then have a discussion about gaps in services, enhancement to services, and then investigate whether there's the potential to create it would be municipal based, but a regional public health service district. And the thought would be that we would try to work towards something that could be a proportional share. So for example, if you wanted to buy into a complete package, so to speak, there may be that option. Or you might want to have enhanced in certain areas that you could get additional support by participating with this group. So we've put the grant request in to take a look at it. If it does get funded, you'll be heavily involved in the analysis, evaluation, discussion, and so forth to see if there's some viability to it. There's everybody, and Mark, actually, Mark, I know Mark probably does a decent amount for probably, if I recall, some of the towns that are in this group. So obviously I don't have to explain how it's been now with COVID when it comes to public health. But I think there are other areas that, you know, in under your umbrella that we want to take a look at and see if we can maybe do a better job. The idea is not to, and to be frank, it's not to eliminate jobs per se within this group. It's to see if we can organize it a more efficient way to share, because from a budget standpoint, you know, there's varying towns that are involved as far as from a size and fiscal point of view, that trying to bring in, you know, maybe a public health director full time and then have all the services is probably a big task, right? From a budgetary standpoint, and maybe not the complete need to do that. So we're trying to see if we could do a little bit better job. I'm not saying we're not doing a bad job, but I think we can always try to see if we can make improvements. So the idea is to take, and this grant is $40,000, sorry, request. And then once the grant is done, if there is, it depends what the outcome is, obviously, but then we will look to see whether or not there might be other grant sources to help fund it initially, potentially. You know, the regionalization is in this area, and there are other areas as well, might be something that might be fundable, but ultimately it would be trying to structure something if it goes forward at the municipal level. So that's what we're looking to try to do, to explore. Do you have any specific questions or not? But
I think it's a great idea. I had met with Fran, with Blythe, with the original documents from the state of Massachusetts Department of Public Health, who were trying to set up regional healthcare districts, public health districts, because 351 separate boards of health, excuse me, just wasn't working. It isn't working. And I think we can save a lot of money and save a lot of time and coordinate better from a more regionalized point of view than just doing it by individual towns. So I think it's a great idea and I'm all for it.
yeah, I think hopefully, again, the idea is hopefully it's added value, not, you know, a negative thing in any way, shape, or form. So we're pretty excited. We did, I know we did investigate Department of Public Health to see if they had any grants available, but they don't have anything really focused on what we're trying to do. There's more immediacy, the money that was available for COVID relief, but not this. So hopefully we submit the application. We'll have to wait to hear if it does get funded, but I guess we'll see how it goes. But
Cheryl,
Are
do
you
you wanna-
looking-
Yeah, so who will be on this group? I'm reading, you know, kind of the comments, and they're kind of fluffy to me. You know, that, you know, creating an inventory of public health resources, you know, I'm not quite sure what it exactly is. I get the concept, but, you know, how is the $40,000 going to be spent? Who's going to be on this group that's going to be researching it? Once, you know, it comes up and says, this is a great way of doing it, are we going to disband local boards of health, and we have representatives from each town? I'm not quite sure where we're going.
So just right at the outset, you will still have all your local board of health. So there's nothing in that. It's a collaborative, it would be a collaborative effort. So for example, some of the other models would be, there would be a member. So say if, let's say the 6 of them decide to be, the communities do decide they want to create a regional district, then there would be representatives from each municipality that would be involved with the board that would oversee the district. So it could, I think if you, we certainly could do this if you wanted to get a taste of it, which we're already doing right now with the dispatch center, which is, you know, a mix of communities, and there's representatives from those different communities already on that. There'll be some, in some respects, right, similar modeling that way. But again, it would, we want to, you know, part of it, we'll see who's availability from board members to be able to participate to, how you want to do it. So there is details as far as how we want to move forward. So we actually kept it a little bit fluffy to give ourselves a little bit of flexibility
Kind of vague, yeah.
in approaching it, honestly. But absolutely, no, it's not, you know, everybody retains their jurisdiction from a local board of health. It's just a matter of, you know, having the ability to deal with issues that have a commonality and maybe, you know, share those services.
So again, is will there be representatives from each town as they start doing the investigation process?
Yeah,
And
there will be, yeah.
okay, all right.
I think, you know, we can, I guess we'll have to try to figure, there will definitely be a representative from each community. And then we'll probably kind of figure out how much maybe additional might be needed from the community. So, you know, like, for example, you have 3 members. I mean, most, I don't know off the top of my head, but I suspect most boards are 3 members, Board of Health in the area. I don't know off the top of my head. But, you know, maybe 2 members if you want. We'll figure that out, but absolutely everybody has to be at the table from each community.
Can there be members of the community? So if we were maybe interested in asking Fran Sullivan if she wanted to participate, considering she had likely set this in motion quite some time ago, and it was a very strong interest of hers previously. I'm just not sure if that's possible. I just thought I would ask.
I mean, I don't necessarily, you know, first blush, I don't necessarily see why not. I think, you know, probably part of it will be trying to manage just in some, from the effectiveness, how big this group is, right? But I mean, certainly, I don't think, you know, I think, and probably, I shouldn't say absolutely, but I think a lot of this will probably be evening hours too. Just, I don't anticipate this being during the day, by the way, just so, because we all know, you know, some people might be available during the day, other people might not be. So, but we'll have to work that out a little bit. We'll figure that out. But
So is the ultimate goal to have this group that oversees multiple towns? And then is it that each town will have to kind of put money into the kitty to support this once it happens? So
yeah,
it'll be an additional line item on the town budget?
yeah, we'll have to expand the town budget. And that's, and Blythe, as you know, we've gone, you know, we walked down this a little bit discussing this, we have recognized that there will, more than likely, there will be a, you know, increased need as it relates to the budget, but at the same time, you know, there might be some efficiency, economy of scale by proportionalize it.
Okay. Thank you.
We have a public hearing due right now, Rich.
Okay.
Where do we stand in the development of this proposal? Has it been submitted to
It just got
MAPC?
submitted last week, so we're in the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the funding hasn't been approved yet either, so we might have a little bit of time yet. So I just wanted to give
All right.
you, kind of put it out there on your radar to.
Okay. Well, you've heard a lot of, I think, positive interest in the proposal. And if Fran were here, she'd be all over it, but maybe she still will be. Okay. But we need to start our hearing at this point. Is that your sum total of your interest in the board meeting right now, Rich?
Well, you do have Buckley Man on a little bit later, so I'll hang around for that.
Okay,
And
all right.
yeah, so I'll just watch for now.
Fair enough. All right. Well, it's a little after 7:30, but we do have a public hearing scheduled for this time. And I see that we have John Glosser here. So why don't I bring a public hearing to order? And to do that requires looking at my favorite document, which is the preamble to these hearings. And so what I need to do now is to note that a variance hearing from Board of Health Regulations is called to order for 6 Stillwell Avenue. And it's my duty to inform the applicant and representative that they've got to provide the board with data to support a request for a waiver of Board of Health requirements, and that if you don't receive the waiver, it'll do you manifest injustice. You've also got to show that what you intend to do is environmentally acceptable. So with these familiar words said, John, I think the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So for the record, my name is John Glossa, and it's Glossa Engineering, 46 East Street in East Walpole. And I'm a registered professional engineer. And as you know, I do a number of septic system designs in Norfolk, and was hired to do a septic system design for a property which is going to sell in a few weeks, I think, or so. And it's at 6 Stillwell Ave. The owners are Elliot and Donna Spigarolo. As I said, they've sold their house. They failed the Title V inspection and retained me to design a replacement septic system for them. So in case anyone doesn't know where Stillwell Ave is, if you were going up Fruit Street heading towards Medfield, the last street on the left is Stillwell Ave before you get to Medfield. And they're actually the first house on the right. There's a house on the corner. I believe that's a Fruit Street address. And then there's a vacant lot next to this. And then there's 6 Stillwell Ave. And so when your Board of Health agent Wade and myself went out to do the soil testing, the water table, which is very high in most locations now and in most soils, was too high to do a percolation test. So what we did is, and if you have it in front of you, you can see on the plan, we did a number of soil tests. First, we did them, a couple of them in the yard, in the usable portion of the backyard. There's a well.
Want me to pull up the plan?
Yeah, that would be great, Betsy. Thanks.
Let's see.
Oh, I see it's down. There you go.
I'll try to enlarge it a little bit.
Yeah, we probably just need the plan portion of it if possible.
Right, I'll move that around.
So,
That's about it.
yeah, that looks good, Betsy. That's great. Thank you, Betsy. So the first thing to sort of recognize here is in the front of this property and in the front of the property to the left, as I said, the property to the right is vacant. There are wells, and those are the potable wells, the drinking water wells for the houses. So we are sort of limited to the rear yard. of the property. And you can see the line that looks kind of like a chain. So there's this stone wall that runs across this property. It's clearly not the property line, but just it looks like somebody sort of put that wall in. It kind of separates the grassed, more usable space from space behind it, which is somewhat wooded, not heavily wooded, but somewhat wooded. Originally, I did 2 test pits in the grassed area. One of them I did not log. One of them, the water started to come in so fast, I thought it was actually sewage. So we buttoned it up quick and dug another one. And then I realized that it's the water table. So after some discussions with the owner, we decided to dig on the other side of the wall, knowing that this system is going to be raised up somewhat. So we did 3 test holes on the other side of the wall. The first one, and this is kind of important for the design, we actually hit the footing drain for this house. So this house has a finished basement, but in an area with a very high water table. So that footing drain is draining the water away from the house and sort of in a pipe and then a daylight somewhere at the rear of this lot, because it's all sort of downhill from right to left as you're looking at the plan. So we kind of moved off of that spot and went to the right a little bit as you're looking at the plan, and we did 2 holes, test holes 3 and 4. And those are the test holes that the design is based on. So we have a high water table, we have a raised system in order to keep the height of the mound more reasonable. We are designing a Presby system, which is an alternative system which allows us to be 2 feet above the water table versus 4 feet. And we also are replacing the septic tank because in my estimation, that septic tank, the piping in and out of that septic tank is either too close to or below the water table. So we're going to raise that up. We don't need to raise the plumbing in the house, but simply because of the location of that septic tank, the pipe coming out of the house is diving down fairly steeply to get to that tank. The reason being that, we don't want the septic tank sticking out of the ground. So whoever put that in originally, it's about 1 foot below the ground, but that puts the piping about 2.5 feet below the ground, which is below the water table in the test pits that we found. So new tank, moved it slightly to the right, so that's slightly uphill, but as far as the elevation, as far as the topography, it's the same as test pit 4. And therefore we're fairly confident that we know where the water table is at the septic tank and the pump chamber. So they have the required separation of 1 foot above, the piping is 1 foot above the water table. And then from that pump chamber, we're going to pump into that Presby system. That's how the effluent is going to be treated here. But because the water table was so high, it's well up into the C layer, and it may have even been into the B layer. Yep, it's into the B layer a little bit also. We simply could not do a perk test. So Title V, the DEP allows us in that case to take samples of the soil. So we took 2 samples, one in test pit 3, one in test pit 4. I use a lab in Cranston, Rhode Island. It's Filch Engineering. They bought GZA's lab a number of years ago. This is what Filch does. They do soil testing. I'm using them on another site for compaction testing. So they're very good firm. They do a very good job at a very reasonable price. So I like using them. And they came back with sandy loam for both of the samples. That essentially translates into a 30-minute perk rate, a 0.33 long-term acceptance rate. And that's what we base the design on. So as far as manifest injustice, so without being allowed to do this, this means these people would not be able to sell their house. They would sort of be frozen in time until the water table dropped enough for us to do a perk test, which at this, you never really know, but if I had to guess, I would say that that's probably at now, not until June or July. So that's going to hold them up for 6 or 7 months. And as far as environmentally safe or environmentally equivalent, this is a system that the DEP has set up. My personal experience is it's a fairly conservative view of what's going on. Those soils weren't terrible, but they were sandy loam, and I think a 30-minute rate is very reasonable in this instance. So I think that there would be manifest injustice if it was not approved, and that it is environmentally the same as if we had done a perk test. So I guess with that, Mr. Chairman, I could answer any questions you or members of the board might have.
Now, we normally ask Wade at this point to give his impressions of the plan that you've submitted and recommendations. So Wade, your response.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the board, Chairman of the board, Betsy, John, other members, and Rich too. Yeah, Stillwell, that area of the town is very difficult. This perk rates are extremely high, way beyond what the code back then even allowed for percolation rates. There is a rumor that the subdivision up there was approved through courts, not through a legal court action, not through the regular permitting road that typically goes for subdivisions. And just a rumor, but looking at the soil and also the percolation rates we're getting there during repairs, I can see that's a possible assumption. But going to this site here, this is very similar to Mohegan that we had at the public hearing last month. Actually, Mohegan is walking distance from Stillwell. Same type of environmental conditions and even the same type of design. It's popular for high groundwater areas. We were out there, soil was very high. I think I just received the packet today because if you read my peer review, it's just kind of like a rush job. I received the plans electronically last Thursday and wrote a response for this meeting tonight, and I received the paper application today. So part of my recommendation is allow a technical review to go through, but that's not unusual for the board to hear that coming from me. There's a few other things of concern on this particular lot because it's really unusual. Would be that foundation drain that we found by accident out in the backyard. And we found it on one of the test holes. If you look at the proposed leaching facility, to the left of it, you'll see the square with 2 little smaller squares in it representing a deep observation hole. That's where we hit the pipe. And so it's a long distance from the house itself. And I think appropriately, Mr. Glosser put a note there that he wants the existing perforated foundation drain to be replaced with a solid pipe. And I think that's a good idea too. And if you look at the location of where that test hole is and where the house is, that drain was probably going underneath the original on-site septic system. So I think that more detail is needed probably from the design engineer to help the contractor fulfill that responsibility of changing that perforated pipe to a solid pipe. Because we don't want the effluent to run into this perforated pipe and then follow down and dump out to where the unknown is. We're not really sure where it empties out to. I think this perforated pipe was probably built when the house was built, and it's not, there aren't any engineering notes or any kind of field notes or even notes in the public files that even talk about this drain. It was done during the construction of the house. So I think that's a real important factor on this septic installation, just to protect the outflow. And also the pipe is needed to be replaced because we want to keep the basement dry. Because I understand it's a finished foundation in an area where you're having high groundwater at 17 inches or so and having a full foundation being dry. That is one nice foundation drain. So it's working really well. We just don't want to continue. We don't want to interrupt it with that, with the on-site septic system built next to it. But overall, I think the concept's good. Not really much more you could do to that backyard. Soils were pretty consistent in that area. Sieve analysis is presented to the board tonight. I would recommend to go with that because there's no other choice, to go back there and try to do a physical percolation test. John mentioned maybe June or to go out and do the test. You might even be looking into September, and you might be hoping for a really dry summer. Groundwater is really unpredictable in that area. But the overall concept's good. I'm just requesting that a technical review could be completed because it is kind of a rush job. I'll do my best to get it reviewed quickly because I understand it's a transfer of property. But then again, boards of health aren't responsible for successful transfer of properties. There's a lot of different entities are involved with transfer of properties. There's the banks, there's a buyer, there's the seller, then there's the legal lawyers that follow through, making sure everything's coming together. And we're involved with it too for habitability of the home. But the banks basically control the timing of it, and I think that's what we're running into. The homeowner wants to sell the house. They have some kind of a deadline, and they want to get everything together really quick. So, but I need to slow it down just so for public safety and also for quality of designs going into town. So that's where I'm requesting. In my peer lit, I did mention a monolithic design for the septic tank. That's just a different type of tank. It's a septic tank, but your typical septic tank has a bottom and a top to it, and there's like a rubber gasket that goes around the middle of it, and they put it together. It's a top and a bottom to it. A monolithic tank is more like a box. The bottom of the tank and the side walls are all one unit, so it's waterproof, and then there's a top to it, just like a shoebox. And the shoebox method would be better because the groundwater wouldn't be able to penetrate inside the tank because it'd be just one solid piece. And that was just one of the things I noticed when I was looking at the plan. And also I suggested too to add additional details for the subsurface foundation modification or replacement because it's very important. It's very close to the leaching facility, and I want to make sure that the house is still functioning as it was prior to the test holes. And I'm here for any questions if anybody has any.
Okay. Well, thank you, Wade. Are there any questions for Wade from members of the board?
Nope, not at this time.
Nope, no questions.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, we don't have a problem with, obviously the board voting if you're willing, if you're going to vote approval with, it being subject to the condition that Wade is suggesting that, he gets a technical review and then we'll revise the plan in accordance to his review.
Well, thank you, John. I guess then I would ask a member of the board then to propose an acceptance of the plan with the understanding that those items that Wade has documented in his letter to us be incorporated as conditions of the approval. Is there such a motion?
Before you make the motion, I know that we do have one person in the audience. I don't know. Any questions?
All right. Sorry about that. Does anybody have anything they would like to add to this conversation?
Guess not. Carry on.
All right. So is there a motion to approve with the recommendations that Wayne has provided us as conditions for the approval?
Yes,
Do we have a copy? All right, Eileen.
I make a motion to accept the proposal with the modifications that Wade has proposed. That's the best I can do with that.
Do we need to have a picture of the document in front of us? Although I think John knows what they are. He's just heard them. And Betsy, can you get to Wade's, the second page of Wade's report to us?
I can. See. Sorry about that.
I have it up on my iPad. You want me to just read them?
Sure. I
Go
somehow
ahead.
lost my. Oops.
So it was
You.
the following items were recommended: technical review prior to permit approval. The septic tank and pump chamber shall be monolithic design due to observed high groundwater, and plan to include additional details for subsurface foundation drain modification or replacement.
Thanks. So with those conditions in mind, is there a second?
I second.
Further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks,
You're welcome.
Wade. Thanks, Betsy. Thanks,
Thanks,
board
John.
members.
Talk to you later.
Not a problem,
Okay.
John.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Aye.
Good night.
Okay. So back to our agenda.
Well, we still have Rich to continue. Do we want to talk about the Buckley man?
All right. Do you have anything in front of us from Buckley and Mann? I know this issue of the PFAS came up. We talked about that a bit last week. Is there something else though, right?
Rich had sent the EPA report, I believe,
Right.
last week.
I wasn't gonna spend too much time with it, just kind of a brief touch in where we're at, so to speak. I could do it in a couple of minutes, not long. How's that? All right?
Sounds
Fair
good.
enough.
All right. So you did, I did forward you the EPA test results that were done from the October testing. The EPA is going to go back out again in the spring to do some additional PCB testing. I guess they weren't particularly happy with the sampling methodology against screening, so they're going to go out again and do that testing in the spring. The results of the testing has been provided to the property owner, which is the Mann family. The EPA did discuss those results with them. At this point, we don't have next steps as of yet. We have data, but it doesn't necessarily define what the next steps are. So we're waiting to hear from that, either the EPA or DEP, excuse me. So we'll have to stay tuned on that. I have shared the report already with Sandy Myatt and Dave Diamond, who two residents that are intimately involved with it. So they've already shared the report with them actually last week. And then somewhat related to the site overall, we do have the poles, the posts, and the signs for the fish advisories. So DPW will be installing those, not just there over on Lawrence Street, but also the other locations that were identified by the board, weather pending. So, we
Yeah,
did.
tomorrow night's a good time. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then somewhat related to that, I think I forwarded to the board earlier on at the same time back in October, but we had through the Board of Health, we had requested the DEP to do sampling the fish in Buckley Pond, Bush Pond, sorry, not Buckley Pond, and so that was done. We don't have the results yet. So once we get that results, we might have to swap out an advisory if something pops up on the list. But I did want to let you know that that did happen. We just haven't actually received the results yet. So
The signs,
what's that?
again, Eileen?
Oh, I was sorry. Was that who requested that, or how did that? Was that just included as part of the process, or was that something separate that was requested by anyone in particular?
Yeah, actually, there was two requests, and fortunately enough, DEP got Sandy Myatt's request, which was ahead of the Board of Health's request. She was just a little bit ahead on hers was July of 2019. I think yours went in maybe in August of 19, somewhere around there. Nevertheless, they got it, and they did the sampling, and they'll provide the results to us. Just the way the program is, if anybody can, pretty much anybody, I guess I'd say, have a, if there's a particular location that they want to have sampled to see if there's contaminants within the fish, to provide additional advisories to the public. They submit them to the DEP. They have an interagency group that evaluates each one, and then they decide which ones to go out and sample. And ours, so Bush Pond was one of the ones selected. The challenge was actually getting into the pond to sample with the boat. So it wasn't too easy. And just for the record, they were on the not to really matter, but technically they were on the Buckley Man side of Bush Pond, by the way, in case anybody is asking. So I'm sure I'll be back to you as the Board of Health as I get more information relative to DEP, EPA, next steps with the property. As you know, the Mann family has filed that financial inability right now on the property to be able to move forward any cleanup. So we'll see. I don't know. I'll be back to you, I guess.
Okay. So is that it for your issues tonight, Richard? Or you still hang around, but it's
I technically had one more, but
Go
you
for it.
got the floor. Why don't you
all right,
go for
give
it?
me one more minute. So as the newer guy in the Senate, well, 3 years now, so it's not totally new, but as I become more aware of the public health aspects of the department, I'm learning more about wells. And so in discovering more about wells for drinking water, I learned through actually Conservation Commission, Keolis is before them to do their annual updates. Actually, it's a 5-year plan for herbicide use along the rail bed right away. And what I did realize or learn actually through that process is that any well within 50 and 100 feet from a right of way, private, well, a drinking well, there's a process by which that gets filed with the Department of Agricultural Resources, and that becomes available to different consultants and agencies to identify where private wells are located and to be, as they apply herbicides. And it applies to any right of way. So it's a railway, a road, utility lines, etc. And they being Keolis was looking to the Board of Health for a database of all these locations. And the more I learned, it's not exactly necessarily, it's kind of a clunky, I'll call it clunky, that's how I look at it, but it's not necessarily a requirement, from what I've read, of the Board of Health, but not bad practice. I could be out of line, but nevertheless, the discussion was that to look at your well regulations, to maybe make some updates and changes to them. And so part of that would be alerting homeowners and well drillers that there is a process as far as it, registering these well locations in relation to rights of way. And the reason why it came up was there was a homeowner that lives on Main Street that was on the Zoom call with the Conservation Commission, and she said, "Hey, my well is 25 feet from the rail bed," and they didn't have it identified. Well, long story short, went back into the Board of Health files, and I can see that they put a new septic system in a few years ago, and because of where the septic system was located, the well had a new well needed to be put in. So, long story short, we need to kind of, a couple things. We will then create a database so we have that information going forward, but then alert homeowners and well drillers that other piece of they file with the DEP, but then there's this whole other well location through the Department of Agricultural Resources. And when I see, it doesn't seem like they talk to each other on that agency level. I could be missing a few little things, but that's kind of the general gist of what I'm kind of learning on the fly here. So.
Well, this is a question, I guess, for Wade, but you work with the state all the time. I mean, I'm familiar with having files in the Board of Health office which have information about where private wells are located. But do we actually have a database that actually has a complete list of all of those wells and their locations?
Well, I think what Rich is saying is a great idea to have to add something like that into the local regulation for the town's local well base. I'm not sure if it's updated. I know there's been attempts of keeping track of where the private wells are. That's probably, Betsy could probably answer more on that case. But going back to the public private well regulations, I agree. It should probably be re-looked, re-reviewed, and possibly even revised from what you currently have. Because there are other things in the well regulation I've been noticing, working with the regulations for almost a decade now, is that the well industry has changed over the years. We no longer just have the portable well, we have the irrigation well, we have the geothermal well, we have different wells, and your regulations don't address them all. And each of them should be looked at differently. But also saying you have a lot of great things in this regulation too, that most other towns don't have. And I do compliment the town on it because I receive a lot of compliments from well drillers and also from labs too, certified labs, saying, well, what a great thing you have in your regulation. Not that I'm taking credit, but I'm working with this regulation. So I think what Rich is saying is a good thing to have. The more exposure where these wells are located is a good thing. But I also want to mention too, if the if the railroad industry wants to spray for herbicides along the tracks, and the people who are spraying the herbicide, it's their responsibility to locate the private wells. It's not the local municipalities. I'm only saying that just for liability purposes, because if they're a licensed applicator and they're spraying it, it's their responsibility not to harm the public. And I'm just letting you know, it's not the Board of Health's responsibility to show them where the wells are so they can avoid it. They have responsibilities too. But working together, hand in hand, of us allowing them to know, well, we do have these wells here, I think that's a really great step. So mistakes won't be made. But yeah, I think what Rich is saying is a good idea. It could easily be put into your local regulations. It could be put into the form that the agricultural resource has available, and we can make it more known to the public that that's something they should do for their own protection. So I guess what I'm looking for is possibly a foot in the door of looking at your current private well regulations and possibly revise it, update it, and of course be going through the Board of Health, of course, be seeing just pretty much what we did with the septic regulations. Take a look at it, a new set of eyes and a current law set of eyes, and make some changes to it. And include what Rich's concerns are also.
Sounds like a great idea.
So I would just need a nod. Okay, great. I just wanted to hear some kind of a positive feedback from the board, then I'll go ahead and start doing that work.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. And I can work with Rich too on what information he has. I can work off that too. Seems like tapping into something that not many people know about.
Are there any technical advances, such as like a GPS tag that you would put on a well that somebody could go by with a computer or an app and identify them if they're, walking through a community, like they might do with like, gas meters or something like that, or water meters?
Well, that's a great idea. I think right now you got well completion reports that the certified well drillers are supposed to submit to the state for any kind of well being drilled. So, and that has a latitude and longitude directions on it. So that's the closest you get to GPS. It's more a paper GPS, but that's where the database is through the certified well drillers.
And just to add to what Wade just said, so the Department of Agricultural Resources, their well registry, if you will, that's what it has. You have to put it in the latitude, longitude of where the well is. So then they generate the map on the backside of it. So that's part of what.
And that would be, yeah, that would come from the well completion report.
Right. Yep.
So we have that data.
Yeah. And I agree. Listen, just
now, I'm not sure if there's some kind of
the meeting started out a little bit sideways because they were kind of pointing to the town, and I was a little bit taken aback by, kind of maybe passing the buck a little bit. And so we kind of came out in a more positive way. I was a little bit taken back by their, well, we checked, blah, blah, blah. It was like, that didn't really, I wasn't too thrilled with that response initially. So we've gotten to a better place. But at first I wasn't too happy with the response I was getting, the pass the buck response, so, but it came out positive. So we're on the right track.
You mean from the,
yeah, from the entity. Yeah, from
the entity that was going to,
yeah, they're like, well,
they're spraying chemicals.
Yeah, they're trying to say, well, that's blah, blah, blah's responsibility. We go to this database and we don't have them. And, it just, anyway, yeah. So I think we're trending in the right direction to get in a better place overall, but so.
Okay, so we're working on it.
That's it for now. Thank you for your time. I am
You're
done.
welcome anytime, Richard.
All right, thank you. And so I'll leave you now, and happy holidays, and we'll see you next month. Well, I think maybe.
You as well.
Aye.
Bye, Rich.
Hey, Rich.
Okay, back to our agenda. I mean, it's been over an hour. We haven't talked about COVID-19 yet.
Yay. Should we approve our minutes? Is that next on the agenda?
Yeah,
Sure.
I didn't print out the agenda. I should have. I did print out the preamble, though. At least I had that today.
Oh, good. Let me see if I can pull up an agenda.
Say, Tom, you should know the preamble by heart.
You know, you'd think that, wouldn't you, Cheryl? How many times have I read that?
Don't practice that in the bathroom mirror every morning?
Well, you know, just one of those things that doesn't quite get done. So to our agenda, is it time to pass on the minutes of the last meeting?
Yes.
Well, we had them sent to us. Are there any errors, omissions, or commissions that need to be addressed?
I thought everything looked pretty reasonable.
Seem familiar?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve the Board of Health meeting minutes from November 16th, 2020 at 7 p.m.
I second that motion.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. So, okay, whoever's got the agenda in front of them, what's next?
New and old business COVID-19 updates. So
Right.
start off with COVID-19 update, and then some of the transfer station mass complaint, sports programs, and any other COVID-19 related business.
Right. So, so Betsy, do we have a list of items that have come up to us in the last several weeks?
No, I don't.
Well, I can look at the letters sent and get some idea.
There was the Montessori school.
Yeah,
There
which I called, and I'll
Sure,
have something written up that was really, it appeared to be unfounded
Okay.
when speaking with the individual. So I think there was something else going on at that point in time, but they were fully aware, and they were actually going to send yet another email out to their staff regarding mask compliance. They actually have closed a couple of the rooms because of staff that have had a fever but have tested negative. There was one child that tested positive, but that child had developed symptoms 6 days after the last day they were in daycare. So they hadn't been in daycare for over 6 days, and then was tested, and the parents kept the child out when they started having symptoms, and then tested positive a few days after that. And I believe just the child was positive, the sibling was not positive, and nobody else in the Montessori school has tested positive. And they've been very aggressive with their standards. So the child has a temp of less than 100. If they have a little bit of a temp, then they have the parents come pick up the kids and stuff. So their challenge right now is that anybody has any inkling of not feeling well, they're sending them home, including staff. And so sometimes they don't have enough staff, and they have to close rooms. So.
Mhm.
But she says it is challenging with the younger ones, but anyone over the age of 2, they're all wearing their mask unless they are eating. So.
Then there was the church, where
Yep.
they were having some issues with people attending mass that were positive, but they were good about keeping records in terms of who was attending, because they had to sign up on a Google sign up. I'm not sure how that worked out. We maybe made some suggestions on, instead of people getting out of their car to take communion, that perhaps the priest was maybe going car to car. I don't know how that finished.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I followed back up with her. So,
Did Alyssa get involved with that at all? Betsy?
I don't remember, Tom.
I think she got involved with the skating club. There was an issue with the skating club.
Skating club, yeah.
But before you cycle off the church, so there was one positive parishioner who was actually attending a service in the church.
Yes.
Yes.
I recommend it. That's okay. That's what I recalled. And the response to that was, did everybody get notified? I think so, right?
Yes.
It was in the church that day.
Mhm.
And then they cleaned everything. And anything else happen? Or is that it?
I thought they had a second person test positive.
Oh,
I thought so. That was, maybe I was mistaken, but I thought another email had come that said that they had had a second person test positive. But
Yeah, I believe so. And Alyssa was involved in this. She did provide some guidance on to them.
does Alyssa report back to you with her activities surrounding each of these reported cases?
No, she doesn't.
Well, I'm trying to figure out a ways that she doesn't have to do a lot more work, but we need to know what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's rather overwhelming.
I understand. But if we could simply get even a verbal, I don't know, put it on a recording or something of what has been happening so that we can at least have a description of it
Yeah.
for our office. Because, people are always going to be asking questions.
Mhm.
And
or maybe just have her include us on her email chain when she speaks to some of the other groups that are having problems.
Sure.
Yeah,
or-
is there any issue around that? I mean, I don't think there should be, but with, privacy.
I don't think so.
No, because it's an issue of, health in this town, so it'll eventually come to us anyways.
If I can
Well, I
add
see-
on
I see.
confidentiality, Tom, if I may, I can give you some updates. So as long as Alyssa's reporting to you of general concepts without any names, that's important. If it's a small group, you have to be very careful because then, as we're speaking here at a public meeting, someone could figure out who was in that small group that is no longer part of that group for a while. So you have to be very aware of the HIPAA laws in that respect. Even with the small grocery store, you would have to be very careful how you go about disclosing that, again, to prevent yourself from having any issues with the HIPAA laws, especially if there's a way that someone could figure it out. And that's usually in a small group. I don't know if the church issue was a small group or not, but it still can be done as just a general overview without putting names to it, as long as it's a large group.
Well, I guess I'm feeling the need for some kind of a standard set of procedures to follow when these cases come along so that we have some way of tracking them ourselves. Because I'm feeling like we're getting some information, but then there are gaps. And we never get a complete picture sometimes. So perhaps just having Alyssa CC us if it's got to do with the town of Norfolk.
Mhm.
Would just have our addresses on her list. I mean, we do get a lot of stuff, but we're not getting it all.
Mhm.
And it'd be useful. And if that's a complication, then we should know about it. But just having that standard set of, people get a CC on an email shouldn't take too much time to do, is my understanding. So, so
I agree.
Betsy,
It would be nice to have some kind of resolution that and I'm sure she does resolve it But you're right, it's probably a lot of work for her managing the amount of stuff that she does to kind of inform everybody that, you know, the case is closed in some fashion.
Mhm. Well, does it make sense for Betsy, for you and Alyssa to have a chat and just see what is the most cost effective in terms of time and energy way for her to keep us informed? If it's not what we're talking about now, maybe there's some other way.
I think the transfer station mass complaint was addressed with the, from the fire department. They put up their electronic sign. I'm not specifically sure what the wording was. I suspect it was somewhere between being very polite and what I had suggested, which was more aggressive. But a member of my family who goes to the transfer station told me that the sign was definitely there.
Oh, good.
I did see somebody in town not wearing a mask at the transfer station this past weekend.
Oh, with the big sign?
With a big sign, yes.
I think it's challenging. I was at Shaw's this weekend and there was some guy walking around without a mask, you know, almost with an attitude of like, you know, come at me, you know, type of deal. And then I saw, I think 2 or 3 more people with their masks down here. It is challenging. I mean, unless we're going to start arresting people, which I don't recommend, but you know,
Works for me.
I think it's, if they're going to be that selfish, you know, it's.
They have Walgreens called. They have a patron who was refusing to wear a mask, and being very confrontational with the staff, putting in the staff in a very awkward position. I just told them, I said, call the cops.
Yep.
Yeah, please.
And they have every right. That's their business.
Yeah, I said, we don't have anybody that we can, you know, I asked if they had a name. I thought maybe we could reach out to the person, but they didn't have a name. So I said, just gonna have to call the police.
Yep.
Mask use, if I can, is very complicated because obviously there are people out there, even if they don't have a medical need, will bring that up. And we, on our end, in the health field, public health, Board of Health, we cannot force them to wear a mask. But the business, such as Walgreens, have their own policy, and that is to not allow entry of anyone not wearing a mask. And they should try to accommodate by curbside or whatever they can do. But they have more opportunity than we do in the public health arena at this point, because again, if they said it's a medical issue, we're very limited to what we can do. And fortunately, the head of the police chiefs has spoken many a times on state conferences and webinars related to COVID. And they're going to limit themselves to any exposure to people of this nature. So it puts us all in a very, very difficult situation. The best bet would be for Walgreens to offer this customer curbside or some other service outside, so that person.
To give this person a mask. They've offered curbside. They've offered drive-through pickup.
They have the right to say no. Then they have the right to say no, and then if he's going in, then it is a police issue because now they went against the will of Walgreens. So I don't know that. I would ask. You probably want to get the police chief involved with this if you haven't already. Just for future, it sounds like this is not going to end. And maybe have Walgreens talk to the police chief on the best avenues if he or she still continues to force themselves into this situation.
Yeah. Well, we had several conversations with the chief of police in town, and Chuck Stone, I think is on board. And I think that we simply need to remind some of the business owners in town that, hey, look, this resource is available. If you've got somebody who's just being a jerk about it, guess what? It's not something you've got to, you know, be the enforcer on. We have our own enforcement agency in town. So yeah.
That's right. Just a big sign that says no mask, no entry. You know,
Right.
and if you violate that, then you're absolutely in your right to call the police.
You're basically breaking and entering into a business, so that is correct. And that's how that would get resolved. But I know, it's convoluted to some degree with the police. You're fortunate to have a chief that's probably willing to send his people in. And then the next step is, what do you do? Do you arrest them? Do you give them a ticket? Do we have non-criminal disposition for mask use? Those things have to come to mind in how you enforce it. And so that's where we could probably be helpful to the chief to see if they do have any, well, breaking and entering is what it becomes, I think, in this case, not masks. If they said no and they walked in, but a good conversation for your police chief, and maybe he can chime in. I would also suggest that you talk to Cheryl Sabara. She's the Mass Association of Health Boards attorney. She may be able to help you. This is a very interesting scenario that it sounds like it's not going to end anytime soon. So I'd suggest maybe reaching out to Cheryl Sabara as well. She's an attorney.
Well, we do have some things in place with the police department where if there's a complaint against somebody by perhaps an establishment owner, we were considering a verbal warning, a written warning, and then there was a ticket. So we have that in place. I'm not sure how the procedure goes in terms of how to keep track of that. I don't know if that's written into the police log. I don't know the answer to that, but we've discussed that with them.
Okay, thank you. I didn't know that. So that sounds like you already have non-criminal in place for no mask use or some type of nature. Good.
All right, on our list of COVID events, recent time, we still have the Christmas event coming along, modeled after the drive-by back at Halloween.
I think it already happened
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it
this
happened.
weekend.
What? Oh, yeah, it's the 15th already. Okay. Hope it went well.
I think it did.
So it wasn't a spreading event.
Yeah. Mark, while we still have you here, I was kind of hoping Alyssa was going to be here tonight, but we were talking about discussing including Mark in our MAVEN, which is the Massachusetts Viral Epidemiologic Network, to follow up on any food related disease cases.
Yes, Betsy, if I can, that would have been helpful. I'm not going to mention names, but we had a situation a couple weeks ago where one of the workers in one of our establishments, food establishments, was found to be positive. With that, the business owner went forward to take the appropriate steps and give him a lot of credit. He went ahead above and beyond, because I was still looking for data or information rather on the person. And it took some doing to make sure, one, that the appropriate contact tracing was completed, and two, that if anyone within the staff of the restaurant was exposed, that they were appropriately quarantined. I've worked with Maven 15, 20 years now in confidential matters. As you can tell, I'm aware of the HIPAA laws and the confidential matters that we deal with. But it would have been easier to have been on Maven. I could have traced the case to some degree to find out which health department, it wasn't our health department, had where that person was living. So I could have gone into Maven or requested that other town share the case with me so I could see what was happening, to make sure, one, the establishment opened up at the appropriate time, and two, that if there was anyone under quarantine, that they were not working there until their quarantine was completed. Never mind the person that was positive, that their isolation, I would be able to keep track of it to make sure they weren't working prior to their isolation ending. So I would need the Board of Health's authority to be on Maven for the town of Norfolk, if you so wish.
Well, why not?
Exactly. Why not?
I think that makes perfect sense. I mean, obviously Alyssa is stretched razor thin, and so it would be really very helpful to sort of complement what she is doing. And in fact, since we have some funding that actually, provides compensation for the work with a grant that we still have running for a little while longer, it makes perfect sense to have you able to do that. But I think at some point we do need to sort of get Alyssa and you talking to each other about, trading off responsibilities depending upon what the event is.
Yes, I agree. And we were chasing each other. I was chasing her for a little bit and then she was chasing me, but it would have expedited, I think, the response that should have taken place in a better way. It wasn't that anything happened. As I said, thankfully the establishment owner went above and beyond and took the actions I would have required. But I agree with you, Tom, that coordination would be even better if we were both on Maven together, because you can communicate on Maven with the side notes. To each case is side notes. So I could write, Mark Oram would show up and I'd write, Alyssa, I reviewed this part of the case for your information. It would make the communications a lot easier as well.
What do we need to do to get you on Maven?
I think the board would need to vote on it. Betsy would have to send, I deal with the person in charge of Maven is Scott Tropey, who I've been dealing with for years, but I think Betsy said she has a contact also. So I think it would be first the vote of the board to have me on Maven for the COVID-19 cases. Well, even food poisonings, it would be very helpful as well. So to help expedite. So a vote of the board, and then Betsy would send that to the state Maven folks for approval.
Okay. I guess that just takes a motion. I'm a member of the board.
I'll make the motion to allow Mark Oram to be on the Maven, the Massachusetts Virtual Epidemiological Network.
I second that motion.
And with the understanding that there's going to be coordination between you and Alyssa, either via Maven or in other ways to
Definitely.
divide up the work. Any other discussion?
No.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Betsy, will you take care of that?
Of course.
And if the board doesn't need me for any other business, I will leave at this point. And Betsy, if you do hear it's been approved, I will in turn, well, I'll try to reach Alyssa, or if you could, and tell her we can chat a little bit about coordination if I do get on the Maven site. So I thank you all.
Thank you.
Guess we're all set at this time with me, and happy holidays to everyone. And it's ironic, if you ever need help on the regionalization, I just worked on almost a program very similar to it in the town of Ashland, Holliston, Hudson, and Framingham for a nurse. And so the agreements and all that, kind of familiar with it. If you ever want to chime in, feel free to ask and I'd be glad to help.
Excellent.
Thank you, Mark.
We'll take you up on that.
Yes.
Thanks. Take care, everybody.
All right. Happy holidays, Mark.
Same to all of you.
All right.
So actually on a COVID grant, I actually just got an additional $5,000 from MHOA.
Yay.
Yep, that just came through yesterday. So to help with our additional nursing services, which we desperately need.
Mhm.
Great.
So the only other thing is, I don't know, I sent you all the select board code of conduct.
Right.
Did you have an opportunity to read it?
I went through it quickly. It seemed like
We
a
did.
code of conduct.
Okay.
Maybe this is not something to talk about in an open meeting, but I'm kind of wondering what inspired all this. Was there an event that took place that this is a reaction to, or is this just something that came casual conversation?
I don't really know, actually.
So
So
what's your recommendation, Eileen? Do you,
I mean, it seemed pretty broad. I mean, you just have to be a nice person. You have to be polite to the conduct in relation to your fellow committee members. Treat all members of the committee with respect despite differences of opinion. Recognize your responsibility to attend all meetings. Recognize that action at official legal meetings is binding. Refrain from making comments or promises on how you will vote. Be polite to the administrative chain of command. So kind of those type of conduct rules and regulations. Treat all town staff as professionals and respect them. So it was kind of broad.
act
and
like
then
you're from Minnesota, basically, is what they're asking. I mean,
I'm sorry.
it's like asking to behave like you're from Minnesota. I mean,
Yes, or Wisconsin. Yeah.
be nice. You're don't be a jerk. Be nice.
There was some enforcement, there were some violations by member, so all sorts of things that, and then you just have to sign that says you have received and reviewed it and that you'll abide by the policies. So, but I don't want you to take my word for it. If you think that we should take more of an opportunity to, because there were like 50 pages of it. If you
Well, that was the whole handbook. It looks like the code of conduct wasn't that long, was it?
no,
Enforcement
it was-
violation.
no, it was about like
Yeah.
a page or two.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was not a long part of it.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it right now. It doesn't look like anything different than any other code of conduct that I've dealt with in the past.
Mhm.
I think that it's very interesting. There's a big, huge thing about refrain from giving instructions and or requesting assistance from town department heads or employees. Channel all such activities to the committee member. I think, which was one I really thought was interesting. Seek no favor and believe that personal aggrandizement or profit secured by holding these positions is dishonest and unlawful. Accept your position as a means of unselfish public service, not to benefit personally, professionally, or financially. So,
Yeah. We're not in it for the money, folks, in case you hadn't figured that out.
I remember long ago, we used to get a stipend of like $150 or something like that, that we just would basically give back to Betsy to be able to buy paper.
Wow. If I had known.
It was a stipend. I know,
Yeah.
you missed the boat, Eileen.
Yep, long ago.
The Baron.
You're dating yourself, Cheryl. 'Cause
I know. I'm almost been on the board as many years as not quite as many years as you, but I'm going to be getting there soon. I have no problem with it.
All right, so is the next thing for us to basically print out a copy and sign it and send it back to the selectmen? Is that what we're doing here?
Yeah, you can vote if you want to vote to adopt it, and then I will gather your signatures.
All right. Well, is there a motion to adopt the code of conduct proposed by the selectmen as being a very reasonable expectation of the members of the Board of Health? Like that.
These motions. I move to accept the select board handbook policy code of conduct for town committees, boards, commissions, council, and trusts.
Care to
I'll second it.
And without further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Okay.
Okay. Will you take care of the paperwork, Betsy?
Of course.
Thank you. All
I
right.
have nothing more for you people.
I just wanted to guys know that as the representative of the Board of Health, I did go to the town meeting regarding the
The animal bylaw.
noise bylaw, and that was defeated, by the way. So, yes, so that we did not change the animal noise bylaws at the town meeting.
Thank you, Arlene. Did you actually have to say something or?
I did. I got up and I made a little speech about how I did not think that the changes were appropriate. I thought it actually made the bylaw less effective because it permitted noise between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. Anything long, if it could be 14 minutes long as opposed to 15 minutes long, that was okay at 14 minutes. You know, I don't know if it was supposed to be 14 minutes and you stop for a minute and then you keep going for 14 minutes. I mean, it's so vague. It was really not a great bylaw. And, you know, we have the opportunity in our community to have different types of animals in our yard without restriction, where there's a lot of that in other communities in terms of size of your acreage and things like that. So we're pretty loose, and I think if we start changing things, we could potentially not be able to have chickens or a pony in your backyard. You know, we're still a fairly rural, agricultural-based community. So I think this was going down the road to where things could go in a different direction.
Right.
So we voted it down, which was good.
Thank you.
Good. You're persuasive, along with a bunch of other folks were equally persuasive. Anything else? Minutes, we need to specify a time when we're getting together next.
I have it on the third Tuesday in January, which is the 19th.
Okay. That works for everybody?
Nobody's going anywhere, so.
Yep, no one's going anywhere. Nope.
That works for me.
All right, then, January 19th, 7 o'clock. We will Zoom again.
Yeah, we're a B square.
One request, and that is by putting the Zoom within a PDF file, the Zoom you know, directions, I couldn't actually I couldn't cut and paste them to actually log in or even put them into my mailbox. My issue is that I didn't get Adobe Acrobat when I got my new computer. I got this cockamamie software package that turns everything into an image, and so
You can click on it from the email that Betsy sends. So when she sends the email, this is
But it
Zoom.
wasn't in the email, it was in this attachment.
Yeah, when she has it on the attachment, it's a PDF file and you can't click on it, because I ran into the same thing tonight as my computer decided to try to reboot itself. So I was trying to do it on my iPad, which is why I was a little late. So, you know, I don't know if, can we just send like a meeting invite that sometimes, like I usually just send a meeting invite with, that has all the information in it? Because is it the same?
I get that from you, Betsy. I get an email and it just says,
Yeah, it was
on it.
If you have it written in the email, it's different than if it would, I think what Tom was doing was he was trying to get it off from the
agenda.
the agenda.
Agenda. So
Yeah,
The only place I could find it this
to
time.
a Google invite, you know, the invite through my Google Calendar.
Yeah, I get that. It's just a straight email with a thing I can click and just join the Zoom meeting. I do that just fine, Betsy. I don't know about the rest of you guys.
Good,
This
good.
was the first
I was
time
having problems. My Zoom software needed to update as I was logging on tonight. So
Well, that's actually happened when I was logging in early just to make sure, and I'm like, oh, thank God I did, because my Zoom software decided to update.
Yep.
So
Okay. So for January, you'll be sending us an invitation in the normal way, right?
yeah.
Okay. I couldn't find it in my email anywhere for December, so.
Betsy,
Well,
do
I
we use
could
the same
update
Zoom meeting, or do you do a different number Zoom meeting each month?
I think it's a different Zoom meeting.
Different
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, probably is. So, okay. So you sent out, all right. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm sure it'll be fine in January. It just didn't work.
Maybe we'll figure it out by January 19th.
Yeah.
Let me know.
If by January, whatever it is, 10th, I haven't gotten my invitation, I'll call you. All right. If there's
All right.
nothing else to talk about,
Oh, I have one thing. So I'm now on the town
Email.
email. So no longer send it to my own personal Gmail account. So Betsy has it on the town email. I just wanted to be able to separate because I get so many different emails.
Yeah, some board members who don't want to use the town email, some want to use the town email. So anyway,
I just forward everything. It comes into that town email, then it gets sent to my Board of Health mailbox.
I don't even use your town email anymore, Tom.
I don't think she's mine either, so that's okay.
That's all right. I got you guys. Yeah, I know who wants to use what. So I think I have it all in a little group. So
Good.
All right.
come say hi.
Meanwhile,
Fresh cat was over there smashing Christmas bulbs. I've got to go through the glass.
So should we make a motion to
Smash.
I've been trying to work it for the last 10 minutes and yeah. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting and wish all who are here a happy set of holidays? And for those who practice it, Merry Christmas. And
Happy holidays, everybody.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the
Christmas.
meeting at 8:53 p.m.
3. All right.
all
Wait.
right.
The motion
All in
and
favor, say
also
aye.
all the happy
Aye.
holidays.
Aye.
Aye.